In this conversation, we'll be identifying sabotaging patterns and transmuting struggle into joy. Helping us with this is an empowerment strategist and the creator of the Empowering Minds Network. She's also the director of Invisible Fitness and the best-selling author of Fit to Love. Welcome to the show, JJ. How are you doing?
Good. I'm great, Toby. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode for Soulful Conversation. I'm looking so much forward to learn so much from you. I mean, yes, especially as an empowerment strategist. Like when I read that word, even pronouncing it right now, I made a mistake. Stumbling upon the words, I'm like, okay, who is it? Who is an empowerment strategist? What does an empowerment strategist do? How do they help me? How can they help us basically in life?
Well, similar to therapy or coaching, but different. It's about uncovering the brand that I've created, the Empowerment Strategist, comes from the idea that we're whole brain people and that we have a right brain and a left brain, and left brain's linear most of the time and the right brain is creative and emotional, and most of us need something that we don't have, or a balance of those two. But any solutions, any kind of therapies, any kind of point of view for healing emotionally needs both pieces, in my opinion. I think that sometimes coaching or therapy lack like both of those. Like if you're just going in to have someone listen to you and validate you, and you're telling the same story over and over again, you might feel very validated, but you're not empowered because you're probably still telling a story in the victim role of that something bad happened to you. And when we're in that mentality, you can't get out of it. It's not empowering. It makes you feel like you're a victim of circumstance, of people, of your past, of your history. And I don't believe that. I believe that we incarnate to have an experience, and that our souls really make contracts with other souls before we get here. And so some of the things that we experienced, we've chosen to experience, and even like the bad, especially the bad stuff, because it helps to grow us. It helps us to expand. I mean, over the past 30 to 50 years, our consciousness has expanded tremendously. I mean, we are talking differently. We focus on different things than we ever have before. And in order for that expansion to happen, we have to have something like contrasting or negative to grow us into. It's like a caterpillar becoming the butterfly isn't an easy process. It's a struggle. The caterpillar, is gooey. It has to literally transform into a butterfly. And so our transformation story often is uncomfortable. But I believe that we could take the lessons, take life and treat it a little bit more purposefully versus as a victim of circumstance, or that something bad is happening, or repeating a pattern of our ancestors or our history or our parents. I think we get a clean slate to decide how we want to grow and be. And so that's, for me, understanding that it's all about how we feel. We are always searching for a feeling, like a relief or love or purpose or joy. So our feelings, to me, are the most important thing ever, because it is the reason why you choose what you choose. And at the same time, most people don't have any kind of plan or understanding of how to get there or why they're not there. And so you do need a bit of the analytical piece, because it's like if you go to the doctor and the doctor's going to say, I don't know what's wrong with me. The doctor's going to run a bunch of tests. They're going to look under the hood of the car. Your car starts to make noises. You're going to open the hood and look underneath the hood. You have to see what's going on to understand what might be needing attention. I'm not going to say broken, because I don't think any of us are broken, but to see what's been changed and what needs attention. So we have to go underneath the hood, but that requires, again, a bit of that analytical piece of understanding the parts and pieces and how we're made up and how it works, so we know what to address. And so that's sort of how I would say an empowerment strategist is more focused on empowering you quickly to understand that you're the creator of your own reality and that you can choose differently. You can interpret your past and your stories and your pain differently, which ultimately will make you feel better, because you'll understand that you have choice, versus saying, oh, it's so bad what happened to you, that's terrible, and then now you're a victim and you're being controlled by outside circumstances. So I'm not a fan of that sort of methodology. And a lot of people that have come through to work with me who've been in therapy for a long time, who weren't happy with it, they didn't feel like they were getting anywhere, felt like, wow, like this really helped me propel forward in my life. And so that's sort of the difference of what an empowerment strategist would do.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing that you're the author of your own story, you're the author of your own life, sounds empowering. it puts you in charge, or it makes you like the co-pilot of your life, of yeah, co-captain of your ship. Yeah, that sounds so awesome. And I'd like us to go under the carpet. I'd like us to maybe throw off the carpet and look down beneath and find out some of the emotional blocks to success in our health, business, and life. Like from your own personal experience and with the experiences that you've had with a lot of your clients, like you speak with, you have a lot of people who you work with. What has been like the common emotional blocks in their lives?
Well, those are your core wounds. Your
Mm,
emotional blocks are your core wounds, and we all have them, but most people don't know what they are. Don't know what a core wound is and don't know what their specific core wounds are. There's two parts of that question. Your core wounds are your beliefs that were formulated when you were like 0 to 7. Any stresses that your mother was going through when she had you, then anxieties, things that kind of got put on you energetically, and then, of course, coming out into the world, and then your brain not having consciousness yet, just sort of interpreted things, but interpreted things in a data collecting survival necessity way, not in a like you and I could have a conversation and I could question why you feel a certain way or why you believe a certain way or how you interpret it. And you can be an observer and think about it and then give me your answer. But then I could also propose another way and you could think about that and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense too. And then we can kind of switch that belief. But when you're, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you don't have that capability. Your brain just records to survive. So if you're crying in the next room and your parents are really slow to come attend to you, then your brain might record that you've been abandoned or that you're not valuable or that you're not important. So these are the belief systems that get embedded in our subconscious very early on, and most of us don't know what they are. 88% of your brain is subconscious, while 12% is your conscious brain. So when you're even in talk therapy and you're only dealing with like what you're dealing with right now, it's only the 12%. But it's the 88% down here, these wounds that were these beliefs that are all wounds because they're based on survival and they're based on not getting a need met. So once you can identify what your core wounds are, then there's ways to figure out what to do about it and how to change it, how to heal it. And and everyone has them. I don't care what perfect childhood you had. Everybody has them. You have them, your parents had them, your grandparents had them. You can't get out of it. It's just sort of what happens because, again, we don't have the ability at that time our brain isn't at that stage to say, okay, because it's still developing, to understand that there are multiple ways to interpret something.
mm. Yeah, I was about to ask actually that, okay, how do I know if I have any core wounds? When you said everyone has it,
Oh, you
basically,
have them.
like,
I promise you have them. We all have them.
so, okay, now that I accept that we all have core wounds, how can we then go about healing these core wounds? What can we do to
Well,
get to it?
it's not, that is a longer answer or not longer answer. That is where you're going to need some help with it.
Mm,
Unless you're a proactive, super analysis, sort of healing, psychology, you understand behavioral psychology and sort of all the things layered in that. The original exercise that I used came out of the Imago therapy workbook of Getting the Love That You Want from Harville Hendricks. But that's just a starting point. And he doesn't even, like, Imago therapy doesn't even use it how I use it. I used it when I was in therapy with my ex-husband to help heal my relationship and to try to save my marriage. And when I got in there and I did the exercise, it changed my life. Forget him. I was just looking at my sheet and I thought there was a habit that I had with him that I would do, and he would say to me, that thing that you do, it doesn't work. So I don't know why you keep doing it. And Toby would literally say, yeah, I know. I totally get it. I can see that it doesn't work. I understand intellectually that it doesn't work, but for some reason, I kept doing it. And then when I saw the core wound exercise and it got to the place where you could kind of see your patterns, I saw that it dated back to, when I was like 10. I was like, oh my God. And that awareness and understanding helped me to stop doing it immediately. But that's how I process emotion. Not everyone processes like me. I know a lot of my clients in the past, when I was a personal trainer, they'd have breakthroughs, emotional breakthroughs. They'd cry. They'd have this big aha, and they would literally continue to do the same behavior over and over again. And I was like, and to me, that was crazy because I'm the opposite. If I understand it, like, if I see it, I can't unsee it. Like it is, I get it and it will change me. But for some people, that's not enough. And so over the last couple of years, I've been developing a couple programs, one's called Rewiring Your Core Wound Patterns, because I understand people learn differently and they need different things. But how you rewire your core wound patterns is first you got to understand what they are. That's first step. And then you have to see how we each individually keep that belief alive. So I'll just give you an example. I'll give you an example in the way of relationships and then money. So if a person has a core wound of made to feel guilty or devalued, well, I guess we can use devalued for both. And that's one of my core wounds is devalued. So if I feel devalued by my parents or caregivers, I probably don't have a really high bar for my love relationships. Like I'm sure someone has to come in and do like and I would say my parents treated me lovingly. I was very valued. I wasn't understood. So maybe there should be a core wound called misunderstood or not really seen or heard. That would be more because they definitely valued me. I was definitely paid attention to, but they didn't understand me. So to have someone come on and understand me just a little bit meant, oh my God, like this is amazing, right?
Yeah.
But a little bit is not enough necessarily. So I then, and my relationship was perfect the way that it was. There was nothing wrong with it. It was exactly where I needed to be. He was a soulmate, a soul contract, absolutely. But I was able to accept less, if you will. Like I didn't have high expectations of, or because I actually thought nobody would understand me. I'm like, oh, this person at least understands me better than anyone else does. That's great. I didn't value myself enough to shoot higher to say, I wonder if there's someone who would understand me even more or could connect with me on certain levels even more. And when it comes to money, if you're an entrepreneur, podcaster, author, speaker, whatever, you run a business and you have a core wound of devalued, you probably overgive and you probably undercharge because you want people to like you. So there's a performing for love that happens. And so when you understand these wounds, then you can see how to apply them differently in your life and why maybe, you struggle with money or you struggle with growing your business or you struggle in relationships or you find that your people that you date maybe don't respect you as much as you would like them to. But these are because we're the beacon, like we're the cell tower. We're the ones that emanate an energy that people respond to. So it starts with us. And in order for you to change any core wound, you have to change it within yourself first. So if you feel devalued, the likelihood is you also devalue yourself. There's ways that you don't show yourself your own worth, that you don't treat yourself with respect. And that's what we start with to uncover. And then there's other things to do because when you create neuroplasticity in the brain, it means you have to stretch into something uncomfortable. And most people willingly do not do that. Most people will not want to be uncomfortable ever. So I do not believe that most people will do this work by themselves.
So, then we need your help, right? As an empowerment strategist to help us, go through that process of healing. Yeah.
Well, a good coach will stretch a person. A good therapist will stretch a person. But sometimes if you don't understand what you're stretching and why, maybe there's less reason to do it. It's like when I learned feng shui, so I'm not the neatest person. I'm not dirty. I'm just not I'm comfortable with piles. Like if you saw my desk, I've got some piles. The rest of my house is neat, but when it comes, I'm an out of sight, out of mind kind of person. So if I want to deal with something, I can't file it away. I'll forget about it. I need to have it out so it's looking at me, so I'll deal with it. That's how I operate. So, but if I have certain piles around, and I used to, operate like this all the time, even more, but then I learned about feng shui. And so if, you want a love relationship or you want some more cash flow in your life and you realize that where you have your stuff is in a money corner where your abundance flows, and if it's blocked because you have all this stuff there, that's a better reason to clean your office than just cleaning your office. Like, I don't care if I have to clean. I don't care that it's super neat, but I care if it's blocking my money, right? So when you learn why the wounds are important and what the habits are doing to you, there has to be a larger commitment to the why. And so for me, I like to provide the clarity because then it also helps people to not feel crazy, to not feel broken, to feel not alone when they can go back and see that other people have similar things and how long this has gone on. And oh my God, now I see it. It makes sense. I feel so much better. I feel validated that I understand why I do this versus I'm broken, I'm not good enough, all the things that we tell ourselves when we don't understand.
Yeah. What I understand right now is that as soon as I can identify what the core wound is, the pattern also is, and I can understand the why behind it, then my healing begins.
The healing can begin when you know what to do with it. So again, there's the first step of if your core wound is devalued, you have to say, well, how do I devalue myself? And then you change the things you do towards yourself. So if you say, well, I don't spend money on myself, well, then you got to go spend some money on yourself. I don't put myself out there. I don't speak up. I don't, whatever. I always put other people first. Whatever you do, well, stop doing that and do the opposite of that. So that would be the first level of healing a core wound.
Yeah. And then is it like the next step afterwards, once I've identified it and I started doing the opposite of my sabotaging patterns, what do I have to do in order to ensure that I am totally healed from the core wound?
Well, I don't know that I ever think anyone's totally healed. I think just like a tree, like the longer a tree is alive, the deeper the roots go.
Yeah.
And there's also like layers of roots. I think that we can live happier, less stressful, more peaceful, calm, connected, all the things that people want when you remove the illusion and the stories that kept you stuck. But sometimes, because we're constantly evolving and growing, I think I have a client that said she's the happiest she's ever been in her entire life. She's been doing a lot of work, but after going through the program, just the understanding, just the awareness of it makes us feel like we understand, and then we have compassion for ourselves. So I think it gets easier. And I have a quote that I created years ago after sort of watching some, what I'm going to say, not great therapy, because I don't think a lot of therapy is that great, quite honestly, but because I would see that a therapist would tell a person to, like, if they said, oh, well, I'm an overeater. And then they'd say, well, don't go to the buffet, or don't go to the party, or eat before you go. And I'm like, that's not right. You're compensating, you're avoiding. To me, healing is when you're different in the same exact situation. When you could be standing next to the person who angers you and you feel love for them. Because otherwise, we're a victim of circumstance. We're running away from situations because we're afraid we're going to get triggered. The trigger lives inside of us. We have to change what's inside of us so we feel better and different in the same exact situation.
Yeah. Yes. I like that so much. I'm going to apply that to my life, basically.
Well, that's how you know if your healing is working.
Yeah.
If whatever you're doing is working, did you respond differently? Did you feel differently? Did you react differently? And if you didn't, what you're doing isn't working.
Mm-hmm. And that requires some level of self-awareness and being able to, track your progress also. Like if I were in this situation 10 years ago, how would I have reacted? Is it the same way I'm reacting right now? And am I better off the way I'm reacting right now? Yeah. Yeah. So I have a friend, JJ, and this friend he has some very sabotaging patterns. Like I don't go to details, just an example, but he does not realize it that this is a sabotaging pattern. It's affecting his wealth and his health also, and relationships basically too. How can I, as a friend, as a close friend, help to take that friend off the sabotaging pattern, even though it fails to realize it?
Be a good example. You can't really help someone who's not. So I made up another quote during COVID, and it goes like this: if they're not asking, they're not listening. So if he's not asking for help, he doesn't want help. You can say, would you like some help? And he may say yes. And then in that case, you could offer it and see if it lands. But most people who aren't asking aren't ready to hear what they probably need to hear to make some changes. You have to be ready. You have to be curious. But they may not know what they don't know. So you can you can offer it, and you can say, I have some things that I've used that are really good for me. And that's how I started using law of attraction and teaching my clients, because I was using it and I was changing and I wanted to share it with them. And sometimes they listened and sometimes they didn't, but I at least was a good example, and they could see through my own living and manifestation of what I was teaching that I knew what I was talking about. So yeah, I would definitely not try to rescue people who aren't asking for help, but you always can say, I have something, like when they're in a griping, venting, problem, and they're complaining about whatever is going on with them, you might be able to say, I hear you. That sounds terrible. And, I'm wondering, did you want me just to listen as you vent, or are you looking for a solution to change this?
Mm.
And then if they say, yeah, and then that way they can say, oh, I'm just venting. And you go, okay, cool. And then you just let it go.
I,
And then you plant the seed, and then maybe later they'll be like, but you know what? I don't know. Maybe you could help me. What are you thinking about when you said that? And then they'll be open. But energetically, you can't come rescue somebody who's not willing to hear, because vibrationally in law of attraction, the solution is a higher frequency than the problem. And when someone's in problem mentality, they can't hear the solution.
mhm.
So you have to sort of wait until they've vented or complained and are at a place where they are yearning for and ready for something better. And then they have to be willing to hear that. You don't want to tell somebody some great solution for a problem when they're in complaining mode, because they're not going to hear it.
Amen to that. Yeah, that's true. But you know, sometimes when you feel very close to someone and you love that person so much, you feel like I really have to rescue you. I have to do all I can do so you can have a better life. And if the person is not asking, then it's gonna be like a struggle or a fight at the end of the day, and yeah, you end up not doing anything or end up destroying the relationship itself. Yeah.
But you can ask. You can say, you can acknowledge and honor your own feelings, and say, I see that you're struggling, and I'm sad. Like, I'm very sad for you that you're struggling. And I'm just wondering if there's anything I can do to help, or if you're looking for any help at all. And if you're not, that's fine. I'll just listen.
Mm-hmm.
But you can honor your own feelings and let them know that you viewing them as sad, and but without making them defensive. Sometimes people try to help other people and rescue them, and they use the word should. So everyone who's listening, please stop using the word should, because when you say you should, what you're really saying is you don't have a choice, and I know better than you. And even though you may know better than the person, if they're not asking, they're not listening, and they're going to get defensive, and they're going to say, don't tell me what to do, because it's going to be a power struggle. So if you just want to help somebody, no matter who they are, you can ask if they're interested in help and if they're open to hearing something. But I would also recognize that if you're ever trying to help somebody when they're in their lowest place and they're in a complaining kind of angry state or whatever, depressing state, they might not be ready. But you can plant the seed by asking and say, let me know. I'm here for you. I'm happy to help. I have some ideas, actually. But let me know when you're ready, and I'd be happy to share them with you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that advice. Yeah. So, I mean, now from this conversation, I've learned that everyone has hormones. And this leads also to some sabotaging patterns that we have in our lives. And now I'm on the path of identifying them, finding out the why behind them, and trying to, heal from them, like doing the opposite of those patterns so I can get a different result, so I can be a different person in the same situation that could have triggered me in a different way. If I continue on this path, will I be able to unlock my brilliance? Will I be able to end up living the life of my dreams?
Sure. Why not? I am. So, I created my stuff. But I look at it like this. You're here on this planet living right now. You have life and you have choice. And every day is a new choice. And every day is a new story. And you get to decide if you're the hero of your own story, or if you're, if you're not even like the hero or heroine of your own story, then hello, what are you doing? Like if you're like a side player in this big life game, I would take your power back. Whether you believe in reincarnation or this is your only life, regardless, in this physical body, you have one life. So you're going to get to the end of it and look back, and I don't have any regrets. So life is here for us to invite us into as great as we want to be. And that doesn't have to be as big of a struggle. And sometimes when we deal with this emotional conversation, Toby, people, especially men, and I'm not saying you, but like a lot of men, it feels very messy. And it feels like I have to let go of control. And people don't want to do that. But what they don't understand is that it takes up so much energy to repress your feelings and to do addictive behaviors that keep you from addressing it. And once you actually feel it and let it go, you feel free. You feel relief. You feel spacious. And that's what I want people to understand about the emotional game. If you're doing work emotionally that isn't helping you to feel freer, happier, and relief, then I would understand why. A lot of men don't like to go to therapy because there's usually no structure. You just go and talk, and you talk about what happened yesterday or why somebody angered you. And it's like, well, what's the point of that? Like, there's no structure. So of course it's frustrating. But that's where, again, an empowerment strategist would be different in that there is a structure, and you can see and you can quantitate and quantify and qualify. Like you can see where things are happening. You can see where there's progress. You can see where the house is being built. versus wondering if you're ever going to get to the end.
That's very true. When you put a structure to things, I mean, my belief, then it helps you to be able to track things also properly. Yeah, yeah. Put in milestones. I'd like to just ask, I know we've talked about this already in some ways. I'd like to ask the role that our feelings and emotions, also play in our journey of healing. Like, how can we monitor our emotions and feelings? How can we control them? Especially when we're trying to, reverse our sabotaging patterns also.
Well, let me ask you, and I'll be interested in your answer because everyone's a little bit different. But okay, so if you were to be embarrassed, Toby, what happens to you?
Oh, if I were to be embarrassed, I think I'll withdraw. I'll become very, very silent.
Does anything physically happen in your body?
In my body, I think I'll just feel this downness. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but maybe my
Yeah.
heart
Does your body change at all when you become embarrassed?
My heart just sinks into my belly, basically.
Okay. I know for some people, and I'm not this person, like I have a client who gets super red, like her face and her chest, like she gets hives. If you get scared, what happens to you?
Oh, when I get scared, then my face, can explode.
Your face explodes. Okay. What about nervous? What happens when you're nervous?
When I'm nervous, I maybe start to sweat.
You start to sweat, right?
Yeah.
Okay. These are all physical manifestations of emotion. The body is reacting to an emotion on a physical level. Well, it's doing that all the time, but we don't see all of the ways. Like if we have toxic hatred and anger in our bodies, that stays in us, like that it usually lives in your lower back or in your digestion. So these are physical manifestations of emotions. So emotions, again, energetically are the foundation of everything. Like how your body feels, like stress. People understand the word stress, but and men prefer the word stress because they can relate, because stress sometimes has a badge of honor on it. But what stress is emotion. Ooh. Stress is emotion. They're the same. So if you understand that the body responds better, it heals itself when it's not stressed, when it feels good, and you can't heal if your body is all tied in knots. So that's not a parasympathetic state where the body actually can heal. The body is where your subconscious lives. In fact, I have a couple books. One's called Messages from the Body. Your body's symptoms are messengers about your emotional state. So if you've got like an upset stomach, or your digestion is off, it probably means you're nervous or scared about something and that you're not really taking in life very well. A lot of cancers have different, like breast cancer and is different cancer than colon cancer and different than uterine cancer. Like they all have different emotional roots. And yeah, so there's that energetic underneath that actually creates, like the visible creates the invisible. We're all energy anyway, but a thought has to be, like something has to be a thought before it's a thing. So again, it's the precursor to the manifestation is the emotion in physical form. And then again, there's the idea that everything's energy anyway. So the energy piece is sort of important to understand. So if you're trying to heal and you're trying to heal in a stressful, so I don't know if you're familiar, there's a book written by Dr. Kelly Turner called Radical Remission. And Dr. Kelly researched and studied many years ago 1,500 patients who had terminal diseases, mostly cancer, but terminal illness, and recovered and outlived their diagnosis and lived for many years past that. And she studied the things that they did. In 1,500 people, she identified 10 things that they all did. And of those 10 things, 7 of them are mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Yeah. So we have to work within us first so that the outward or the physical body can also be healthy. Yeah. Yeah. The spiritual controls the physical, the invisible controls the visible.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, JJ, I've learned so much from you in this conversation. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. We knock over fitness, we knock over all other things, but I felt like this conversation now to focus on these core wounds that we carry about our lives. I'm so grateful that you're able to shine some light on that and help us to know what to do, not to heal, and also become better beings through that. Thank you so much. I know people are out there who would like to maybe get across to you, ask more questions, maybe about your books that we didn't talk about, also even engage in your service in the empowerment strategist service that you offer. What's the best way to reach out to you and to work with you?
Well, I generally just work with people to listen to my show. And the reason is, my show is free. So you can go to my podcast, and I would recommend Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. I have a whole network, but Spirit, Purpose, and Energy is probably the best show to go to. And there's, again, I think I just published number, I don't know, like 500 or something. Anyway, so there's like hundreds and hundreds of episodes for you to listen to, and they're free. There's a couple classes on my website, jjflizanes.com, jjflizanes.com. There's one particular that's how emotions affect healing and disease. That's one class. And the other class is 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective. And that, again, would be for anyone who doesn't feel like the therapy they're doing is making a big impact or really making major changes in their lives. So I would recommend that. So I really just work with people who listen to my show because it's about the resonance and the know, like, and trust. Like, you have to trust me. I don't want someone to come and I have to tell you what I do or who I am. I want you to be able to, and by the way, I will tell you that there are many people who've listened to my podcast over the years that end up writing to me and telling me how my show has changed their life completely. And I've never met them. They've never paid me. So there's plenty of tools and information on the show that you don't have to pay for. It's free. But then when you're ready and you're ready to take the next step, then you reach out and we'll talk about what the next step is.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. So I'll place the links to your website and to the podcast in the show notes of the episode. I encourage everyone to subscribe to the podcast, not just subscribe, but also listen to the episodes and reach out to JJ if you have any questions. This has been very, very blessing to me. I really appreciate speaking with you and having this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Toby. It was great.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought-provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.